Hey, Kyle is wonderful here again with another wrestling review. This time it's AEW Dynamite from July 6th, 2022, and it just finished. It was live from Rochester, New York. Pretty crazy show overall. So much thrown at us, man. It was just we're definitely it's definitely back to old AEW. If some people thought it maybe slowed down a little bit with all the Forbidden Door stuff and stuff like that, it's this definitely back to old Dynamite. There's so much info, so much different things thrown at us. Me as someone who watches everything, including Dark and Dark Elevation and BTE and AEW and all that, and I review all those shows as well. You can find that on the channel. But for me, who does research and stuff on this show, it's still so much information to try and absorb in a 2 hour span. It kind of seems like when you get some information, it just gets squeezed right out the other ear, one in one ear, out the other, because you got to make room for the next information that's coming. And then it just keeps coming and coming and coming. So you get to this main event that's almost always a good match, but always super rushed because everything's in the show's rushed. They're trying to fit everything into the show. We actually got 5 minutes of overtime, I think, today. So it was a 2 hour and 5 minute show of Impact or of Dynamite. Sorry. um, and it just seemed like there was never a chance to breathe. You never quite were able to absorb anything, and it's just really tough. So I know not everybody's over here taking notes and stuff like I am, but still, I can only imagine a random fan isn't gonna know as much as I do and do as much research as I do, so they're gonna have just as much problems, even though they're not taking notes. So that's like my main complaint about this show right off the bat. Like, the stuff we get within the show is pretty good, so it's not like I'm gonna bury everything here. It's just so much to take in. It almost seems like we definitely need Rampage to be a 2 hour live show. I know that changes the entire structure of AEW because they mostly only run one show a week, and at that one show they tape Elevation, Dynamite, and Rampage. Now sometimes we're lucky and we get Rampage at a separate location, but that's only every now and then. And I think the main reason is because most of the contracted people are only kind of here for like the one match a week kind of thing. So I don't know if that's going to be hard to maneuver in the future or whatnot, but I think if you add a 2 hour show for Rampage, maybe on Friday, maybe on a different day, but two different hour shows, I think then we can kind of breathe and let things kind of simmer and happen organically, and not have to just have Excalibur explain everything to you in an exposition, like talking really super fast, and you kind of like I said, it's in one ear out the other, so you can see the next thing that's happening. So let's take a breather, since I just finished watching. This is as soon as I can get on as the show ended, which was about 10-15 minutes after the show ends. I have to do a lot of rewinding, a lot of what did he say there, what did happen there, what was the move that just hit, as I'm trying to take notes. So it's just so much to take in, but it's not a boring show. I'll give it that. It's definitely not a boring show, but it could be off-putting to some fans that there's just so much damn information at the beginning. I mean, just throughout. All right. Do we all take a breather? Whew. All right, now let's just try to go through this. I'll try and go through it a lot slower than what happened on Dynamite, so we can try and absorb what happened here. So Dynamite's live tonight from Rochester, New York. It's July 6th, 2022. Like I said, Excalibur and Taz are going to be the only two announcers for the first hour, and I like that a lot. If you're a fan of Dark, like I am, the Excalibur and Taz 2-man booth is amazing, and they don't get to joke around as much as they do here, since they have to work rushing through everything, and we got a lot of info to tell everybody. But if you like a more laid back, relaxed approach and want to listen to these two, definitely go watch those the Dark shows are almost an Excalibur and Taz weekly podcast that just happens to have squash matches going on in the background. So anyway, we see Wardlow walking through the back right at the beginning of right after the pyro, and Excalibur and Taz welcome up to Dynamite. We see Wardlow walking through the back, and he's about to make his entrance, and that means we are starting the night off with a TNT title match. It will be a street fight, don't forget, and Scorpio Sky comes out next. So before I get into it, let's talk about the theme of this show. I didn't quite know this, and I had no idea going into this event, but this is the hometown of Mr. Brody Lee, rest in peace. So this is kind of a Brody Lee celebration tribute show um, throughout. So the announcers do mention it here, where um, the the greatest TNT champion of all time, Mr. Brody Lee, in his hometown. We're gonna start with the TNT champion that he made, that he elevated. So good stuff there. It also kind of might explain why Brody King won the Royal Rampage on Rampage Friday. Not to say that this is the only reason, but I think it was probably a big reason why Brody King was in the main event tonight. Tonight was a celebration for Brody Lee, so it just made sense in their minds at least. And I like it. I like that tribute. So we also do get to see -1 Mr. Brody Lee Jr. out here later on as well, and he gets to talk. So this is a big time. The theme of tonight's show is a celebration of the life of Mr. Brody Lee. So rest in peace. Like I said, we'll never forget Mr. Brody Lee. So, like I said, we're going to start with this TNT title match. Scorpio Sky comes out looking good. He's got his matching Lakers pants to go with his Lakers title belt. He brings out about 6 or 7 America Top Team guys. Remember, that's how this whole match kind of got set up. Wardlow said, just fine. It's a street fight. Just bring all of the America Top Team. I don't care. So, of course, Dan Lambert's here. He's the head coach of America Top Team. If you don't know who America Top Team is, it's a big time MMA training and like facility where they've had so many titles. Like that's where all those titles came from when Kaz and Sammy stole the titles. So I do see, as far as I know, I see KM. I don't know if you know who the wrestler KM is, but he's the really tall guy that was with America Top Team. You might remember him from Impact, although nobody was watching Impact at that time. But yeah, as far as I know, KM is not a part of America Top Team, but I think he was just here to take a couple bumps. I don't know, maybe he is, but we've seen KM on Dark and Dark Elevation just losing in minutes to the other big guys on the roster. So that was interesting. This crowd completely loves Wardlow, and they are hating Scorpio Sky. This match starts out a little more even than I thought it would. Wardlow doesn't just get the edge right away, but a little bit after, when Wardlow is about to take advantage, Scorpio Sky hits a low blow. Remember, no disqualifications. This is a street fight. So he hits the low blow to slow down Wardlow, but it doesn't slow down Wardlow very much, who starts tossing Sky around the ring. And then it ends up outside the ring where Dan Lambert distracts Wardlow just enough for Sky to throw Wardlow knees first into the steps. Really good bump there, the Mick Foley bump. And we go to a picture ad break at this point. Now all of America Top Team are putting the boots to Wardlow, who escapes back into the ring eventually, but Sky maintains control off of this. Wardlow tries to fight back, but Sky is able to dodge Wardlow's attack. Wardlow battles back again. This time it works. He starts working over Scorpio's back with some strikes. And then we come back from break. Right as Sky dodges a spear, and Wardlow crashes right into the ring post with that missed spear. So the crowd's super loud when we come back. They're worked up into a frenzy. A little bit after this, Wardlow hits out of nowhere a picture perfect swanton bomb. Props to Wardlow for that. All the way to the middle of the ring, too. He had some length on that. The crowd goes crazy for this, rightfully so. And Wardlow's about to start the Powerbomb Symphony. He gets Scorpio set up for the first one, but then that's the cue for America Top Team to run in. Wardlow takes them all out. Just easily takes every single person out. KM takes a bump in the ring. Then I didn't see who it was, but like the smallest guy of the group gets thrown on into the other American Top Team who's on the outside. That was a great looking spot. And when Wardlow turns around from all this, Scorpio Sky hits a massive title belt shot, the TNT title, right to the face. I thought this was going to be it. Wardlow kicks out somehow, and the crowd is just whipped into a frenzy. So shout out to the Rochester crowd. They were really loud. Wardlow blocks and then hits a spine buster. Then he starts the Powerbomb Symphony. The crowd's just eating everything up. The entire crowd's doing the conductor thing with their hands, and Wardlow's massively over for sure. They're all doing that arm ward thing. 3 power bombs is all it takes. Wardlow thinks that's enough, and he is correct. Puts his foot over Scorpio Sky's prone body for the 1, 2, 3, and somehow that one little attack on America's Top Team took all the professional fighters out for the entire rest of the match. That was a little weird, but anyway, even though so yeah, we do have a new champion. I forgot to kind of mention, like, this is a big win here, but I would have said, and I know Scorpio Sky was maybe injured for the last month or so, but I really wish we could have just had this be the match right after Double or Nothing, get Wardlow the title. Remember, I think it was we hadn't even known that CM Punk was out injured yet at that point, remember? So if at all possible, it would have been great for the night right after, the same night that MJF had the pipe bomb. I wish Wardlow would have had this exact match and won the TNT title then. It kind of seemed to me like Wardlow had cooled off a little bit after all those great stories with MJF and stuff, and even the stuff with CM Punk before that. And to me, he had just become like a Goldberg clone that's unstoppable without any stories or anything good going on since then, which kind of makes me yawn. But I will say, Wardlow, the crowd didn't seem to care that Wardlow didn't have much of a story the last month. They were going crazy, and that swanton bomb off the top rope was incredible. So I'm not going to hate on Wardlow here. We'll see how he does with the TNT title. Hopefully he can elevate the TNT title. Scorpio Sky, I have no problems with Scorpio Sky, but unfortunately his 2 title reigns with the TNT strap have not elevated the title whatsoever. And I think maybe Sammy Guevara didn't elevate the title either ever since Cody left. So let's see if Wardlow can bring some prestige back to that title, and maybe they can actually give him some stories to go with again. And I hope he's not just going to be a storyless monster that destroys everybody and is completely unstoppable, because that's a total yawn bore fest for me anyway. So right after that, we go to the back. Um, well, I did kind of want to not. I don't want to just breeze through everything. So let's see what else we can think about for Wardlow. Like, who is Wardlow's next opponent going to be? Mm, maybe he maybe a feud with the Jericho Appreciation Society could be a thing. I could see that happening, and maybe because of the numbers game, it would actually make it seem like a fair fight. You could have Wardlow fight different members of the Jericho Appreciation Society until maybe Jericho himself gets a TNT title shot. So maybe that's something they could do. I'm not quite sure what they're going to do with Jericho Appreciation Society yet, but we find out tonight, a couple of side stories remaining for the Jericho Appreciation Society with their current feud coming off of Blood and Guts. So they're going to break off into their individual stories. We'll go through those as they happen throughout this show here, but um, maybe that's not. Other than that, I'm not quite sure who Wardlow would fight. Maybe you can get him some matches with like Brian Cage or some other big guys like Nick Camarado, just to show him throwing around and power bombing big guys as well as small guys. Maybe a built up Luchasaurus, who's now heel, could be a good opponent for Wardlow, maybe at a pay-per-view. So maybe that's what we could be looking at it All Out. Maybe by then Luchasaurus will be built up enough with Christian Cage. Unless that's the match and then unless at All Out we're gonna have Luchasaurus versus Jungle Boy. So I'm not quite sure. I haven't seen the latest news on Jungle Boy. I don't know how long he's gonna be out injured, but definitely a lot of options for them to go with Wardlow. What they do with America Top Team and Dan Lambert and Men of the Year and Scorpio Sky next is I have no clue. It seems like nobody was impressed, even though I didn't think it was that bad, by Paige Van Zant's debut at Double or Nothing. We haven't seen her since. No sign, no like sign of her, no mention of Paige Van Zant whatsoever. Maybe that's done with. Maybe they're getting ready to get rid of Dan Lambert. I'm not quite sure. I know a lot of people didn't like Dan Lambert to begin with, and now even some of the people that did like Dan Lambert are saying that he's just spinning his wheels, and his character hasn't evolved whatsoever. And I kind of would agree with that. I'm a huge Dan Lambert fan. I love some of the stuff he was saying. He was saying some of the stuff. That's the reason I love AEW and a lot of things, but I still like to listen to the other side as far as like a Jim Cornette on their point of view. I like to try and figure out what all sets and sizes of and different fans from ages and backgrounds and whatnot, what they might think of a certain particular show. I know what I think of everything I see, but I also, one of the things that when it comes to wrestling is you want to know what's popular, how can we make stars, how can we get For me, I mean, I grew up where I used to be able to talk about to my friends and almost any random person that I meet about wrestling, and then that's all changed. That was back in like the late '90s and stuff. And everywhere you go, there was an NWO or an Austin 316 shirt. And now wrestling is such a niche product, such a underground kind of product, where that's the reason that I try and figure out like what do people like about wrestling? What do people not like about wrestling? Basically, what I found is it's all in the eye of the beholder. I might think it's a freaking classic match with a ton of grappling and counterattack wrestling with amateur style and MMA, little bits of MMA involved in it. Maybe like an extreme example, the best example, the best version of that match would be Daniel Bryan versus Zack Sabre Jr. And that would be my dream match, and I would just be pants off watching that one. But there's a certain like other fans might think that's the most boring match they ever seen. They want people to go through tables. They want a Young Bucks match. So basically all I've ever figured out when I've tried to study that is everything is in the eye of the beholder. Like you might like something in the match, I might hate it, but it doesn't mean it's wrong. Now like things like what Jim Cornette says and stuff like that is like um, obviously the point of view of an older gentleman who had been a fan of wrestling from the 60s and 70s and 80s. So that's their point of view, but that's definitely only a certain segment of the fans. Someone like me, even though I try and study and I try and go back and watch as far back as like 81, 82, I still have no knowledge of like 1970s wrestling other than like what everybody else might know. So it's hard to tell. Let's just get back into the show now. Right after that TNT title match, Wardlow winning the big strap. We see John Moxley in the back. He'll be in the main event tonight against Brody King. And Moxley says, people are waiting for me to drop my guard. They think Brody King can surprise me, but I know who Brody King is. 10 days ago, I took on a man I respect in Tanahashi, and I beat him down. And then last week, I cut people up in blood and guts. So I know what to do, and I know exactly who Brody King is. In the Blackpool Combat Club, we push each other so that nobody can surprise us, step up or get stepped on. So, decent promo here from Moxley. That'll set up the main event tonight, and then we go to an ad break. Nothing much to break down out of that. I like that he brought up how he kind of likes Tanahashi and respects Tanahashi, and he still kicked his ass. So, what am I going to do to someone like you? I have no respect whatsoever. Kind of deal. We've heard that before from Moxley, but I mean, he may as well say it again. It's real. So in the back, after an ad break, we see Mark Sterling and Tony Nese walk up to Keith Lee. It's Mark Sterling is holding onto like a clipboard or something, and they want Keith Lee to sign like an affidavit or something. It's going to be the people versus Swerve Strickland, and they're trying to legally kick Swerve Strickland out of AEW. So they tell Lee, well, Swerve's already turned his back on you once, so why don't you sign this? And Keith Lee says, yeah, but Swerve is still my partner, and we're still winning. And then he says, unlike you, as he looks at Tony Nese. Mark Sterling could, so Keith Lee walks off, and Mark Sterling kind of under his breath says, he could stab you in the back again tonight. So maybe a little foreshadowing there. There is a Swerve in our glory match later, but by having Strickland Mark Sterling say that here probably means it's not going to be tonight, but we'll see. So back in the arena, Christian Cage is making his entrance. Here we go. Christian has been on fire, one of the best heels in the business right now. The last 2 weeks of Christian have been absolutely amazing. Some of the best work he's done in his entire career as far as promos go, and he's had good promos in the pack, good heel promos as well. And Christian's entrance doesn't last too long. Right after that, the new entrance for Luchasaurus hits with all the fire and brimstone, hellfire and brimstone, Kane style. I wish it didn't sound quite as much like Kane in the beginning. It kind of works into its own original song through the middle, but it's got like that Kane organ in the middle at the beginning, and every single wrestling fan over the age of like 15 is gonna be like, "Oh, this is a Kane ripoff." Why even put the stupid Kane organ sound in the mid in the beginning? Why even put it there? You're instantly gonna have him compared to Kane, and that's not good. So Christian is dressed as a Bond villain yet again. just one of the best heels in the business right now. Christian gets in the mic when they get to the ring and says, now people want to know why Luchasaurus allied with me. But before anything can be said, the Hardy Boys music hits, which is a little awkward. I wish Matt would have just came out to like something that would be his own and not the Hardy Boys music. But I guess it goes with the whole like Christians here and the Hardy Boys and the rivalry, and that was the same music Christian would have been hearing like when he's preparing for or when he's out there for the TLC matches back in the WrestleMania 2000 and stuff. So anyway, the Hardy's Boyd music hits before Christian can explain himself. Matt Hardy comes out and Matt says Christian is the Michael Jordan of being an asshole. That gets a big pop from the crowd. He says no one deserves what you did to Jungle Boy and his family. Christian says, hold on. Don't act like you're friends with Jungle Boy. You're starting to sound like your brother is the sober one. This gets huge boos from the crowd, an asshole chant. So I knew immediately when Matt Hardy came out that was the route we're going to go. If Christian's going to talk about dead fathers in real life, then he's definitely going to bring up everything to do with Jeff Hardy here. And I don't think he once named Jeff Hardy by name. He would just be like, your brother and your family and stuff like that. So that was awesome. Matt says, I see what you're doing with Luchasaurus. You want to make as much big money as you can. And I'm no hypocrite. I used to use everyone in Hardy family office the same way. But in a very strange twist of fate, maybe karma has caught up to me with how my life has gone since then. Christian says, you're just out here because of your ego. You're a clout chaser. You'll use your kids, your wife, your gardener, your lake, anything, even turn a blind eye to your brother's issues for one last run. Woo! Dropping pipe bombs here. That's what everybody's saying here. And if go watch BTE Being the Elite from last week, Matt Hardy even talks about this on there candidly. I mean, it's part of his character, so I don't know if this is how he really feels, but Matt Hardy was like, I'm so focused on our legacy that I dragged my brother here and all for this, and now look what happened and stuff like that. So I don't know if that's really how he feels or what, but really, really good stuff here. Great. Christian's the best heel in the business right now as far as promos go. Christian continues and says, now you act like you care about Jungle Boy. I'm not buying it. Your screw up brother isn't even the biggest embarrassment to your family. And this makes Matt's hurt enough. He goes to attack, but Luchasaurus throws Matt out of the ring. Matt tries to fight back, but Lucha kicks Matt Hardy's head into the ring post. Then Luchasaurus hits a choke slam on Matt Hardy through a table. As Christian says, there you go, Matt. Now your name is in the headlines. Loved it. Loved that segment. Loved that Luchasaurus doesn't have to do much other than just be the heavy for Christian. I would kind of tone down. I would have Luchasaurus stop doing like the and the stuff like that. That kind of is corny and whatnot. I know like villains from back in the day or monsters from back in the day did that kind of stuff, but it didn't mean it wasn't corny back then either. So if they just kind of keep Luchasaurus as this like badass, silent, not even grunting or groaning or anything, no sticking your tongue out, just beating people up and doing what Christian says, I think we could have a hit here. Otherwise, I would say if this isn't a hit by like All Out, when we're probably going to get that Luchasaurus versus Jungle Boy match, I would just say put Luchasaurus back with Jungle Boy or something, because if this like we cannot waste this amazing Christian heel stuff if Luchasaurus isn't going to work out. Now, I think it's a great decision to try Luchasaurus on this. You may as well try the Luchasaurus was somewhat over with the crowd. We don't know how much that was to do with Jungle Jack Perry or if it's just Luchasaurus on his own. So we'll find out here. Christian, best heel promos in the business right now. Luchasaurus has some great moves in his arsenal. And like I said, if they have him stop doing the and stuff like that, I think we could have a winner here. But I would be definitely watching this closely. And if I was Tony Khan, I would pull the trigger on getting Christian away from Luchasaurus if it's not working out. Give it a month or two. at the most. Otherwise, Christian's just going to get dragged down to Luchasaurus's level, and now this great heel stuff that Christian's doing could potentially be wasted. But if the goal here is to make Jack Perry, Jungle Boy, like the biggest star possible. Remember, Jungle Boy is one of the 4 pillars of AEW, and they really want him to be the future of AEW. So I think all this Christian super heel stuff is all designed to, I mean, there's no think about it. This is all designed to put over Jungle Boy into the stratosphere, maybe have Jungle Boy go from here to singles gold and stuff like that. That's the plan anyway. And hopefully it works. I don't know if Luchasaurus is a good choice, like I said, but we'll see. Maybe the big money match will end up being Christian versus Jungle Boy. And Luchasaurus isn't even involved. So after that, we get a really great recap of the Blood and Guts with a bunch of new promos, talking to people right after the match. So there's a lot of dried blood and stuff like that. Really cool. I didn't write down. They said mostly your generic kind of stuff you would figure them to say, but it was really cool and a really good visual. So great recap video here. Now in a parking lot, Tony Schiavone has Jake Hager and Claudio Castagnoli on each side. Jake says, Claudio knows he's not a world champion like I am, and he never will be. I also have an undefeated MMA career. So Claudio says, my team beat your team. Well, it's not your team, is it? It's the team of the guy you carry bags for. Anyway, next week, I'm going to go to 3-0 in AEW when I beat you, Claudio says to Jake Hager, the former We the People tag team partners. So that got a huge response from the crowd in Detroit last week when Claudio and Jake Hager were squaring off together. So I assume that'll get another good reaction next week. So back in the arena, the Butcher and the Blade are coming out for their match. They'll be accompanied by the Bunny. I wish they weren't. Bunny screams at the top of her lungs throughout this entire match, ruining the match. I probably should have just muted it, but if you mute it, you might miss some crazy storyline exposition that what's his name, Excalibur's trying to give us. So I didn't mute it, but wow, please, what? I get that you're a heel, but do you have to make your show annoying to watch for the entire match by screaming at the top of your lungs? Just terrible stuff there. So the Butcher and the Blade's opponents will be Swerve and Our Glory. So we'll find out. We'll find out here if Swerve has the Swerve, and Swerve comes out first. Keith Lee soon after. And if you've noticed on their entrances, Keith Lee has been hesitant to give Swerve the fist bump, but Keith Lee gives the fist bump the Swerve right away this time. And I'm like, oh, you know what that means? Since Keith Lee has just forgiven Swerve, Swerve's probably going to stab him in the back. So let's find out. But like I said, with the Mark Sterling thing earlier, when he suggested that, Swerve's just going to stab you in the back again tonight. So that by them saying that out loud means that it probably wasn't going to happen tonight anyway. And so let's find out. Butcher, Keith Lee and the Blade are going to start the match, but Butcher pretty much tags in right away and gets thrown off the top rope by the Butcher. Keith Lee does. So that was pretty crazy. Butcher then goes for a chair, but Blade stops him and says, we need to get to the top 5. That was interesting. And they make Butcher throw the chair away. That makes Butcher throw the chair away. So Swerve tags in. Big cheers for Swerve. They were having big cheers for Keith Lee as well before that. And we get a major big botch now. Swerve either jumps a little too soon on a leapfrog attempt, or the Blade was running way too slow. I don't know. It's really nothing too major. They just quickly move on, but it looked awkward, and thankfully I don't think the Blade got hurt, but that was a major botch on that botched leapfrog, mistimed anyway, and Blade crashed in the Swerve on his way back down because that's how gravity works. Blade battles back after this, but Swerve tags in Lee. We get a double team move on the Blade. The Blade hits a jawbreaker soon after that, but then just gets thrown out of the ring. Bunny gets in the way at this point, and Butcher from behind actually misses Swerve, but all of that commotion gets the Blade able to sweep the legs of Swerve, sending him crashing from the apron to the outside. I think he hit the apron on his way down to the hardest part of the ring, if you haven't heard. I like it. I don't remember who said it. I think it might have been Jericho one day, but they said, "Well, really, wouldn't the hardest part of the ring be the steel ring post?" But maybe that doesn't count. I don't know. But then we go to that picture-in-picture ad break. The entire ad break, Butcher and the Blade isolate Swerve in their corner with quick tags and double teams. When we come back from break, Swerve bite on the top rope. Butcher looks like he was trying to do a superplex or something, but Swerve bites the hand. That gets a couple boos from the crowd. And I don't remember where Butcher's from, but I know the Blade is from north northern New York. He's from the Buffalo area, and they were in Rochester tonight. So there might have been some fans of the Butcher and the Blade in the crowd tonight. But also they noticed that Swerve continually is doing some heelish type things in these battle royals and stuff. So maybe it's just had nothing to do with the opponents, Butcher and the Blade, and they're just kind of tired of Swerve cheating. That might have been it. But either way, um, that gets him out of that spot with biting. And while on the top rope, he hits a diving super cutter, or I don't think it was a super. I don't remember what it was though. I wrote super cut. Anyway, Keith Lee now gets the tag and beals the Blade into the Butcher. That looked amazing. Really, probably the spot of the match right there. The bunny screaming ringside is intolerable. I probably should have just muted it and sacrificed missing out on anything I might have heard from the announcers because it was that bad and annoying. Anyway, Swerve tags in and they hit double teams. And when Lee goes up for goes for the pounce on the Blade pulls Swerve by his belt into the path of Keith Lee. Keith Lee sends Swerve flying. I like that. That's a great little storyline wrinkle. Right when Keith Lee was starting to forgive Swerve, now Swerve gets hit by Keith Lee. So we'll see what happens with that. But this match continues. Butcher and the Blade look for a double team, and they do successfully get Lee out of the ring. They look to take out Swerve now. So Butcher throws Swerve into a big shot by Blade, but Keith Lee's just barely able to break up the pin. So Keith Lee, that was like a 2.9. That Keith Lee just barely was able to sprint and slide into the ring. So Keith tries to take on both men on his own. Is starting to struggle a little bit, but Swerve comes over to help. And this leads to a nasty powerbomb stomp combo. Just ridiculous. That move looks ridiculous. To the Blade for the 1-2-3. Of course, the Blade probably wouldn't even have kicked out of the stomp or the power bomb alone, but together it's nasty. And this is kind of what Keith Lee was talking about with Smart Mark Sterling earlier in the night, where he was like, "Yeah, he was stabbing me in the back, and he might do it again, but we're a really good team and we're winning a lot." So it makes sense. They are like, look at this move right here, just for example. Before anybody can celebrate, we hear someone talking over the microphone. This is the second time in a row Hobbs starts to talk and we don't see him on the screen. Remember, it happened at Forbidden Door pay-per-view as well. I have no idea. I don't know Hobbs' voice well enough to know that instantly know, oh, that's Hobbs talking. So both times when Hobbs starts talking, I'm like, who the heck's talking? But then Hobbs comes out. He's got Ricky Starks with him, and they're out here really mad. This was like there was a ton of fire from these promos from Starks and Hobbs, as they really had a fire lit under them. So, like I said, the match had just ended. We hear someone screaming, and ends up being Hobbs. He had screamed, "Turn that off! Turn that off!" Talking about the music, and then he says, "What you have here is two grown ass men." But y'all just two trick ass bitches. That was pretty funny. The crowd popped. Ricky Starks then says they are several levels below us. Just because you come from where you did doesn't mean you can that you're better than us. Basically, throwing out the WWE line there. And it gets super heated, and they're like, we'll saying we'll show you who the best tag team is. And as soon as that's said, cue the Young Bucks music, and they come out with microphones. The Young Bucks say, "Well, we'd like to apologize for interrupting," and then say, "Oh, never mind. We started this damn company." They say we've got a great AEW tag division. Everyone's eating well. But let's not forget who set the table. You guys did have a great match at Double or Nothing. 4.5 stars. But 4.5 stars is an off night for the Young Bucks. And you two didn't even win that match. Jurassic Express did. Then who beat them for the titles after that? We did. So here's what we got for you. We got a little proposal. How about next week, a 3-way tag team title match? And at this point, the crowd chants, FTR, FTR. Even though FTR was not a part of the story. So that was pretty funny. And the Young Bucks ad-lib and say, we are better than them. And then the Bucks say it's going to be Team Taz versus Swerve in Our Glory versus us, the best tag team ever, for the AEW World Titles. So that'll be next week. Swerve in Our Glory, Team Taz, and the Young Bucks. I'm pretty sure everyone and their mother thinks it's going to be FTR versus Young Bucks for the AEW title and the ROH title and the IWGP Heavyweight title and the AAA tag titles. 4 titles on the line. That's probably your main event of All Out, especially since we have the interim champion right now. So if you're ever going to have it, the tag titles be the one that headlines the pay-per-view instead of the AEW World title, I think that would definitely be the time. Because like I said, it's not only AEW, not only ROH, not only AAA, but also IWGP. Now there's a little Swerve curveball thrown in there. I should say Swerve. I just had Swerve on the mind, but a curveball is thrown in that line of thinking a little bit later on. We'll get into that when we get there. But that is the end of the segment. Nothing else was said after they said, let's do the 3-way next week. So let's think this through. It looks like this could potentially be our match where we finally see Swerve in Our Glory implode. We didn't see any. There was basically almost no reaction whatsoever from Keith Lee. I mean, from Swerve from when Keith Lee ran into him. Maybe he saw that it was on accident, or more than likely Swerve is going to be brooding about it for a week straight, and I'm assuming that'll be his reasoning for turning on Keith Lee next week. That might happen, that might not. Also, I assume Young Bucks are going to keep the title so we can have that FTR match for all the gold, but you never know. Anything could happen in this one, so it would be cool to see Team Taz with the belts. Swerve in Our Glory, I mean, I'm kind of more into. I'd rather see them fight each other at this point than see them as a tag team, since they keep teasing us with like this feud. I'm more into seeing them fight each other than I am as a tag team kind of deal. So we'll see how that goes. Let me know what you guys think. Who comes out of that with the AEW World Tag Team titles next week? But to set up that big, for it to be the main event, for the 4 tag titles, FTR versus Young Bucks at All Out, they would have to win this match. So if they do win it, then we're one step closer to that match, which I definitely wouldn't mind seeing be the main event of All Out. So after that, in the darkness, we get one of those videos with the House of Black. It's Malachi Black popping out of the darkness. And he says, I envy you, John. And he's talking about Moxley, of course. That's who Brody King is fighting in the main event for the interim AEW World title. So Malachi Black says, I envy you, John. The decision you have made and the violence you have inflicted on yourself. What I truly envy is the experience you're about to have. You don't know pain and violence, but I'll make sure Brody King shows you tonight. It goes beyond the physical realm of pain. And then Brody shows up out of the darkness and says, while Black says, I envy you, John. So apparently Malachi Black is a masochist and really likes pain. So he envies John Moxley that he's going to have a lot of pain and that he's been bleeding a lot and all that kind of stuff. A little awkward. I don't know what that means per se, other than I guess he's just a masochist. So I don't have much else to say about that, other than it did set up. I was looking forward to between the Moxley promo earlier and then this promo, good setup for the main event. If you weren't already interested, so we go from that. My favorite wrestler in the world currently's music hits. It is Eddie Kingston's, and he comes out to massive cheers. And I mean, I know Eddie Kingston's been around for a long time now, but Unfortunately, I had known his name, but I never really like. I was never huge in the Shikara, and I was never huge in some of the other companies he'd been in. I'd seen his work in Impact, nothing too crazy to speak of there. But all the stuff I've seen out of Eddie Kingston here in AEW has just been so amazing. Eddie Kingston could literally talk me into caring about a match that I never even give one flying F about 2 minutes earlier. But Eddie Kingston talks about that match for 2 minutes, and all of a sudden, I'll give you $30 to watch that match. That's how good Eddie Kingston is at his promos right now. So Eddie comes out. He's limping a little bit from the Blood and Guts match. He's wearing a Mob Deep shirt, which I love. That's another. Eddie Kingston's a little bit older than me, but I'm still that. I'm like that mid-30s guy that thinks he's still in his teens wearing a baggy. I mean, I don't necessarily wear my baggy jeans and stuff like that, but I'd like to think I'm like cool like that still, like out here wearing my Mob Deep shirt and stuff like that. So Eddie Kingston also has a really cool factor to me. Like someone I would definitely hang out with and would have hung out with for the last 20 years if he was my good friend. So Tony Schiavone's in the ring. He's apparently holding the microphone for Eddie a little too low. So Eddie starts out by saying, "Hold the mic up, be a professional." And that got the crowd to cheer and laugh, and everybody was having fun on that one. Tony says, "You won Blood and Guts, but you still want Jericho, I hear." And Eddie says, "Well, first, Wardlow, congrats, brother." So pause. Let's pause on that one. Remember when we were kept being told that Wardlow had no friends because of his association with the Pinnacle and all that? And when like Wardlow was getting the crap beat out of him by Shawn Spears and MJF, that nobody came to Wardlow's help because of all the things Wardlow had been doing to everyone else. Well, here we go. Here's the first sign that Wardlow is now having some friends in the locker room. Eddie Kingston coming out here and saying, "Congrats, brother," to Wardlow for the TNT title win. So that's something to put in your little memory bank that Wardlow is getting. People are warming up in the back to Wardlow after all his despicable things he did as a servant for the Pinnacle. I think people are now realizing after all that was said and done that Wardlow was only doing it for his mother. You know what I mean? To be able to put a roof over his mother's head. So that was number one. Number two, he says, "Congrats to everyone on the team that won Blood and Guts, even you, Claudio." And that gets some laughs from the crowd and stuff. And Kingston is like, "See, I told you I've matured." And then he goes, and Taz is on commentary, and Taz starts cracking up laughing. Like, he quickly stops himself because he wasn't supposed to laugh there, but Taz couldn't help himself. So then Kingston says, "Chris Jericho, you made me a liar. I didn't get to taste your own blood. You didn't bleed." And then on the big screen, well, first we hear like some grunts and groanings, and I have no idea what the heck's going on. And then we see the big screen, Jericho's on it, and he says, "Kingston, up here." So holy crap. I'm about to get on my soapbox. I apologize to any Ruby Soho fans, but she's about to get eviscerated. So remember that grunting and groaning I said we heard about? We are about to get one of the worst acting displays of all time on any professional wrestling show I've ever seen out of Ruby Soho. So like I said, we're hearing those fake grunts and yells and like we didn't even know Jericho was on the big screen at that point. So we hear that over the PA system, which right there tells me Ruby's like just going like not waiting for Jericho to say, Kingston over here before she starts her stupid acting. So right off the bat, it's already like weird and botched because we're like, oh, we hear that over the PA system before we hear Jericho or see Jericho. So that's number one. Then Ruby is like fake yelling and grunting as if she's on the toilet. The camera pans out. Ruby Soho is in front of an SUV with the car door open. There's Jericho there, like we've already seen. Ty Conti is standing in front of Ruby Soho. We don't see anybody hit Ruby. We don't see anybody holding Ruby. We don't see like anything done to Ruby. It's just Ruby leaning against the car, grunting and groaning as if she's on the toilet with some terrible acting. And then it gets worse. So like a full, like it seemed like 5 minutes, but like a full 2 or 3 seconds of Ruby acting like she's 100 years old and like, help, I'm falling, I can't get up. Ruby Soho just cannot move from the spot that she's in, and eventually Conti slams the door of the SUV on Ruby's shoulders. So I get the story they're trying to tell us here, but before the slam could even happen, Ruby completely took me out of this angle with her terrible, god-awful acting. It was already dead in the water to me. Ruby then fake cries on the ground even more, and that is a segment that belongs on Wrestle Crap. It was so bad. So terrible stuff. Ruby also holds the honor of the worst ever episode of Hey EW with RJ City. They, for whatever reason, wanted Ruby to act like she was annoyed and hated RJ City, which she really wasn't, which means Ruby so had to quote unquote act through that entire episode of Hey EW, and it was by far the worst episode of Hey EW. I love that show. Go watch the one with Adam Cole this week, where Adam Cole does the same shtick where he hates RJ City, but Adam Cole can actually act, unlike Ruby Soho. So I'm not saying Ruby's the worst wrestler in the world. I'm not saying that, but she might be the worst actor in wrestling. And don't put her in these kinds of situations, because this Ruby Soho stuff belongs on Wrestle Crap. You're going to see it on Botchamania for sure. I'm sure a lot of other people are going to rip her apart too, because this was some of the worst acting I've ever seen in the professional wrestling, and completely took me out of the segment, completely took me out of the angle. And it's not, like I said, it's not an isolated incident. She also holds the honor of the worst ever AEW episode because of her acting. So me personally, I think her charisma is average. I think her wrestling ability is average. Her look is pretty good as far as a punk rocker goes. But the acting, the promos are just F tier, bro. F tier. So I'm gonna get off that soapbox, and nobody go and like, just because we're saying these things doesn't mean I have anything against Ruby Soho the person or anything. I'm not gonna tweet Ruby, and you guys shouldn't either. There was despicable things of people tweeting Shotzi Blackheart from her botches in the WWE Money in the Bank, to the point where Shotzi had to delete her social media, and probably was already feeling bad about the botches and didn't need a million people tweeting her about her botches and how bad she is, and probably death. You know how wrestling fans are. So I'm not acting like that here, but I am saying shame on AEW for putting Ruby Soho in a situation where she has to act, and more so than Ruby herself, because if you're not good at something, you're not good at it. And it's not like acting something you can take a class and become good at. You can take the class and maybe become a little bit better, but acting is more of a something you either have or you don't. It's hard to explain, but it's one of those things you have to have. It just has to be your second nature that you're able to act. So I'm not saying I'm the best actor in the world, but I know that I'm 3 times, maybe 4 times better the actor that Ruby Soho is. So let's just move on before I get a ton of hate mail. But you can find me on Twitter, Kyle_is_wonderful, with the letter 1, just like Mr. Wonderful. Anyway, let me get a drink. That was so bad. We go to a break after that ad break. When we come back, Taz tries to put over how serious that situation with Ruby was, but it's just laughable because it was so bad. So unfortunate for Taz there. So now we get into something a little happier. A celebration of the life of Brody Lee continues now, as Brody Lee Jr., also known as -1 under the mask. He's wearing the mask, of course. It's such a good idea to have masks are already a part of the Dark Order, but now you get to hide the what do you call it? The identity of a 10-year-old child. So I mean, we all know that his real name's Brody Lee Jr., but at least I like the idea that if we're gonna have a 10-year-old child be a part of the television show, he gets to wear a mask and kind of maintain some little bit of anonymity that a child should have. Not there is child actors out there in the world, so it's not like it's the end of the world, but I do like that he wears a mask. Anyway, so all of Dark Order comes out. All the remaining members, I should say. Alan Five Angels is gone. Stu Grayson is gone. So we've got Anna J, 10, Alex Reynolds, John Silver, Evil Uno, and -1. So John Silver gets on the mic and says, "This is Dark Order country, baby." And the Evil Uno gets on the mic and says, "We have important news. I want to thank all of you for supporting the Dark Order." And it's kind of looking like good job by Evil Uno here with his acting abilities or whatever to convey that it almost looked like they were about to split up or break up or put the Dark Order in the ground. But the next words that come out of Evil Uno's mouth is, "The six of us here are here to stay." So the Dark Order is forever. We begin a new chapter. It begins with a proclamation, and he hands the mic over to -1. And before -1 can say anything, his mortal enemy, his longtime nemesis, QT Marshall, comes out. -1 has to be held back from rushing QT. QT talks a lot of trash and challenges -1 to a match that gets massive boos from -1's hometown crowd. Hangman's music now hits. Remember, associate member of the Dark Order, and QT tries to run away, but he runs right into Evil Uno. Hangman throws QT into the ring. All of Dark Order hit big moves onto QT. Now, -1, Brody Lee Jr. gets on the mic and says, "I would pin you right now, QT, but I'll wait until I'm 18. And I think he might have said 19 on accident, but 10-year-old child who's not an actor, give him a break. And then they all leave to big, big, big Brody chants. So rest in peace, Brody Lee. I love that we get to keep the memory alive. I like that Dark Order is not going to be dead, even though I think they're not very. They haven't really done anything in a long time of note. So it's kind of like a situation like, okay, you're not going to leave, but are you guys going to like, are they finally going to be taken serious at any point, or are they just wait? Are they going to hang around for 8 years and wait for Brody Lee Jr. to get here before getting serious? Which would be a pretty, that would, oh wow, would that be some long-term booking with that would have an amazing payoff. Imagine 8 more years pass, maybe like the names change, but it's still the Dark Order in premise, and then an 18-year-old Brody Lee Jr. comes and has his first match or whatever, kind of like Hook, how everybody just went freaking crazy for Hook. So that could be a thing that happens. We'll see. But I, again, really love that segment. So now joining Taz and Excalibur on commentary for hour number 2 is JR. He gets his Boomer Sooner music played. And this is exactly like Nitro when they used to change commentators at the hour mark. So almost like a throwback here. I like that. I hope they keep this format going forward. And JR gives us some news from backstage saying Matt Hardy is suffering backstage, which I like JR for that. Good job, JR. So then the lights go out. And I'm like, what is it? The main event already? Or really what I was thinking is, what? The AEW World Title's not the main event? But no, I forgot. There's more than one stable that has the lights go out. It is Penta Obscuro and his Tombstone and Shovel. He's got Alex Abrahantes and Ray Fenix with him. And Penta is going to fight his old rival, we're told, of at least 5 years, Roosh. And I wish Roosh had better music, but he comes out with a really cool looking white bull skull mask, and we're told that his nickname it's White Bull, but whatever it is in Spanish, which would be Blanco Toro or Toro Blanco. I don't remember. I failed Spanish class, but I know just a tiny bit amount. Anyway, like I said, or maybe I didn't say, Jose the assistant and Andrade El Idolo are accompanying Roosh here. Last week, if you remember, in the Battle Royal, Roosh took off Penta Obscuro's mask. One of the biggest, like, disrespectful things you can do to a luchador. So the bell rings, and wow, this should be a good one. I was looking forward to this when it was announced earlier today. So both men come out from famous wrestling families, and they start a chop battle to kick us off. Some really great quick reversals. Is eventually won with a super kick by Penta. Great start here. Great fast-paced action. A really weird move to the outside leads to more counters. I don't even remember what it was too weird to describe, but kind of an awkward move there. Penta then hits a lucha arm drag off to the steps on the outside. I like that. I don't know how many times I've ever seen it done off the steps. Then again, I don't watch too much. I bought Triple Mania once a couple of years ago on pay-per-view, and I vowed I would never waste money on AAA ever again. And from what I hear about CMLL, they're kind of a boring promotion that only has like every single card has like 6 trios tag matches that are all 2 out of 3 falls. Like, so if you like 2 out of 3 falls trio matches, CMLL is the place for you. Anyway, going back to this match, um, right after that arm drag off the steps, Penta goes back in, looks to dive outside, but Rush slides back in the ring, hits a big forearm. Then Rush mocks the Sierra Miedo, or Miedo. God, my Spanish is terrible. Rush then hits a stinger splash, then a basement drop kick off of that to the face. We get a cocky cover, number 2, I think, in the old SmackDown games by Rush with the boot on the chest for a 1 count. Penta then hits the sling blade and a top rope, a tope con hero to the outside. That was awesome. A really botched part here now where Jose, the assistant, goes to hit Penta with an iPad, but Alex Abrahantes stops him, and we get super fake looking fighting between 2 non-wrestlers. Why, AEW? Why would you have Alex Abrahantes, whose only role for the company is supposed to be doing the pre-shows, some of the Spanish announcing, and his daytime job is QVC, where he's just selling stuff? Why is he out here throwing worked punches on a non-wrestler in front of the world? Let me get in my Jim Cornette soapbox on that one. What are you trying to kill the business here? Anyway, we go to a picture-in-picture ad break. Roosh is still in control. He's working a chin lock. It doesn't look like Roosh wants to do any big moves during a commercial. He's like, screw that. Pretty long break, too. Roosh controlled it all with nothing exciting. When we come back, Penta Oscuro is about to turn it around, but Roosh hits a nice-looking snap power slam to stop it. Penta then hits a backstabber, and now things are a little more even. Both men are kind of hurt. Both men catch their breath as the crowd rallies behind Penta. Penta's the first one up. He's putting the boots to Rush in the corner. We get a bunch of Spanish trash talking now, and I really wish I didn't fail Spanish class because I would have liked to hear that trash talking. But Rush hits a Glasgow kiss headbutt 2 times, and the last one makes Penta Obscuro's mask fall off. That's definitely a botch because that means that at some point in the match, Rush was supposed to be taking Penta's mask off. That's the only reason. Like, remember, we never see Penta's mask fall off in other matches. The only reason it falls off here is because it's supposed to be getting pulled off in a little bit. So that just pretty much kind of ruins the ending. But it's still a good match. It's not like it ruined it. You know what I'm saying? Penta like catches the mask in midair before it completely falls off and gets it back on. But yeah, that's kind of botched because you knew that Rush is going to pull it off at some point. And well, I mean, the announcers already ruined it earlier, so it's not even like it was a spoiler. They told us that, oh, in Mexico, it's a automatic disqualification when you pull the mask off. But here in AEW, it's not. It's not a DQ. So I mean, we already knew anyway. So anyway, we get some slaps trading in the corner, like slapped you and then I move you to the corner and I slap you and now you move me to the corner. Really good spot. I like that. Showed a lot of aggression. Rush gets the better of that and has to get a break from the ref. The ref tries to break it with a 5 count, so Rush has to break it. Rush now goes to the top, even though Penta was like right in front of him. I'm like, what are you doing, Rush? But Rush knew what he was doing because he just pushes Penta away and hits a picture perfect, beautiful pinpoint missile drop kick. Great stuff there. Rush is really good. Rush goes for back up to the top now and hits a senton, not a flipping one, just a regular senton for a 2. Penta then hits a rolling cutter and a package pile driver right after that to turn it all around. Pretty much anybody's game now. And I thought maybe even Penta might win it off of those moves, but Andrade puts Rush's foot on the top rope. So now the ref gets distracted and Rush hits a low blow, steals the mask off of Penta Obscuro. The ref turns around to see a roll-up pin for the 1-2-3. Your winner is Rush. Really good match. Like I said, the announcers are, if you're like me and you know that when they telegraph stuff, like the announcer saying, oh, it's not a DQ here in AEW when it's pulled off. So you knew exactly how the match was going to end at that very moment. So the mask falling off later on while a little bit funny and a little bit botched, didn't really ruin anything. This match was good. Um, just like everything tonight, everything could have used a little bit more time and a little bit more time to breathe. I don't exactly know what you cut out of the show to make room for that. Um, Not that I want to be like a. This is gonna be awkward. I don't want to sound like I'm trying to segregate people here, but I do kind of wish that like maybe we could get a 2-hour Rampage women's show and build up, maybe go sign like 10 or 15 or 20 more women, and have them have their own show, because there's just way too much they're trying to cram into Impact. I mean Dynamite. I keep calling it Impact. Anyway, we're told that the ROH pay-per-view, which again we might be getting an ROH TV show at any point. We'll have to keep at any given point. We're gonna have that announcement, so keep your eyes open for that. I think what we're waiting for here is Tony Khan to get his streaming deal. Now, I'm sure Tony Khan could easily get the streaming deal with HBO Max. HBO Max is owned by the same Turner Broadcast and what are they now? Discover Media and all that stuff. Time Warner Media. They all own that HBO Max, but they probably are lowballing the number that they would give Tony Khan for the streaming service. So I'm sure that Tony Khan will, if he can't find a bigger number, a bigger offer, I mean, will go to HBO Max, and then maybe an ROH show will be on HBO Max. Maybe we could get a women's only show on HBO Max to go with it. So things are looking up, I think, as far as AEW is going to get better as we go here. It's going to get even more. It should get and then when you're like those shows that are on the streaming service, you don't have to worry about ratings or nothing like that. So anyway, at the ROH pay-per-view, we're told it will indeed be Samoa Joe versus Jay Lethal for the ROH Television Championship. So in the back, Lethal, Singh, and Dutt are all celebrating. This is what they've been working for a long time. Remember, we haven't seen Samoa Joe since not Forbidden Door, but which I would. Why wasn't Samoa Joe at Forbidden Door? Man, maybe he got injured, because we haven't seen Samoa Joe since Double or Nothing in the finals of the Owen Hart tournament in his loss to Adam Cole. So in the back now, oh wait, no, I already said that. It was just they celebrated, didn't really say much, but Lethal says, "We're not taking you lightly, but what we are taking is your championship," which was a good line from Lethal. Now back in the parking lot. I don't know why they kept going to the parking lot, but it's Orange Cassidy, Trent Beretta, and Chuck Taylor, all wearing matching tie-dye jumpsuits. Smart Mark Sterling and Tony Nese walks up to them, and he wants them to sign that same thing, the affidavit or whatever, to get rid of Swerve. Orange says he doesn't sign anything unless his lawyers look at it first, which is so weird to hear Orange talk, let alone be like, I guess that was the joke, that he's like very civilized and, oh, I'll have my lawyers look at it. Like, but it kind of takes away from the character, in my opinion. But it's a character I'm not a fan of per se. I get that he's a great wrestler, but it's not like I mark out for little fake kicks to the shin like some people do. But anyway, Danhausen, speaking of characters, walks up right after Orange says he doesn't sign anything unless his lawyer looks at it. So Danhausen walks up wearing a suit coat over his normal outfit, and he says, that's where I come in. Mark says, well, how about Orange versus Tony Nese on Rampage this week? And they basically just say, okay. So this was supposed to be comedy, I think, but nothing funny happens. So I guess maybe it wasn't supposed to be funny, or if you I don't know, but basically it was this setup: Orange Cassidy versus Tony Nese. So we will have a three straight weeks of Orange Cassidy matches. I said this last week. Orange Cassidy showed a lot. He shut a lot of people up with his performance at Forbidden Door by being so good. Which I mean, I still stick by my original statement, which was Orange Cassidy wouldn't have been in my top 10 for people to fight Will Ospreay, but I knew he was going to pull out a good match, because A, Will Ospreay could have a good match with a broom, and B, Orange Cassidy's better than people give him credit for. So I knew it was going to be good. But what I did say last week on Dynamite after the remember, again, we saw Orange Cassidy fight, and he debuted his new music, Jane. And then again on Rampage, we saw Orange Cassidy come out, and he was part of the Battle Royal. So what I was mentioning is you do run the risk, if you have Orange Cassidy on too often, that he's going to be overexposed. I don't think this is something you want on every single week. I think if you have 13 days between when people see Orange Cassidy. The reactions for Orange Cassidy are going to stay really loud. And if you have him every 7 or sometimes every 3 or 4 days, it can definitely be overexposed with something like a gimmick that gimmick heavy. So maybe after this Tony Nese match, maybe they should keep Orange Cassidy from being on the show next week. But we'll see how that goes. Let me get a quick drink. We got an 8-man tag next. And this is this was signed later in the day, pretty close to when Dynamite was announced, and it will be the Acclaimed and the Gunn Club. So no Billy Gunn. Bowens is back from injury. You remember last week he miraculously rose from the wheelchair, but then accidentally hit one of the Gun Clubs. So there is trouble in the Gun Club. Remember, it kind of left off last week with the Gun Club walking away, and then seemingly Billy Gunn siding with the Acclaim. So we'll see where this goes. Probably nobody was surprised, but we'll go through this. So it's the Acclaimed in the Gun Club, and we don't know who their opponents are. Max is about to start rapping. They're all coming out together, but Austin Gunn steals the microphone, doesn't let him say his rap, and this gets giant boos from the crowd. It gets boos from me too. The Max Caster raps are always I don't think the Max Caster raps can ever be overexposed, unlike Orange Cassidy. You could have Max Caster raps on 3 different AEW shows a week and it's never going to get old. Huge boost from the crowd, like I said. And now we see that the opponents are going to be Ruffin It and Fuego del Sol. So if you remember, Ruffin It is the trios team of Leon Ruffin, formerly known as Leon Ruff, the former NXT North American champion, and Bear Country is his trios teammates. So that was we saw Ruffin It versus Max Caster in the Gun Club on Rampage a couple weeks ago in a 75-second loss, and that was also Max Caster could come out and say the NDA line about Vince McMahon. So anyway, Leon Ruff and Bear Country are back together as Ruffin It. They've recruited Fuego del Sol to their side. The crowd is still booing massively for Austin Gunn not letting Max Caster rap. So Fuego's going to start the match. He's wearing like a t-shirt, and again, Fuego's not wearing his if you follow my Dark and Dark Elevation reviews, Fuego del Sol has not been wearing his like original gear, and we're to believe that's because it's not been said out loud by anybody, but I think this is just a little bit of good work by Fuego to wear different outfits now and have people think, oh yeah, that's because Sammy Guevara stole my normal outfit and he never gave it back, kind of thing. So I love that kind of little bits of, because I'm the kind of guy that looks out for that kind of stuff. For when people actually do that kind of stuff, I give them big props. And I guarantee you this was either Fuego or by himself, or maybe Fuego and Sammy together coming up with this idea. Or maybe I'm just selling Tony Khan short, because everyone keeps saying Tony Khan's a genius when it comes to creative stuff like this. So definitely maybe something out of the mind of Tony Khan. But anyway, I love it. Fuego's going to start this match with Austin. Austin takes down Fuego, then tags in Colten. We get a huge ass boys chant from the crowd, but not like in the playful manner that they normally do it. This is in pure anger, which was pretty cool. Bowens now tags himself in because it didn't look like the ass boys were going to tag Bowens or Max Caster whatsoever. Bowens kind of realized that and tags himself in. But then Fuego counters and tags in Bear Bronson, the smaller of the two Bear Country guys. Bear Bronson takes out 4 men by himself. Max Caster just barely saves Austin from losing the Bronson. So Max Caster showing that he's willing to, they're still a team or whatever, you know. Bowens tags back in, hits a couple big strikes and a Rough Rider. And Max now tags in. He goes to the top rope, hits the mic drop, and makes the cover. But in the meantime, Austin had gotten a blind tag before he hit the mic drop. So the referee does not count until Austin makes the cover. And that gets the 1, 2, 3. So we didn't even get to see Bear Boulder or Leon Ruff in this match, which is ridiculous. And that's whatever. And then they never even got in the match though. Gun Club immediately attacks the Acclaimed, but Billy Gunn saves the Acclaimed. But then, oh my gosh, I never saw it coming. Billy Gunn turns on the Acclaimed with a massive lariat on Max Caster. and Bowens is over there wanting the scissor with Billy, but he eats a Famouser instead. And yeah, I know a lot of fans are going to be upset about this. They really like the partnership between the Gun Club and the Acclaimed. I, for one, am very happy about this. The only stuff I enjoyed out of the Acclaimed Gun Club stuff was the Max Caster raps. I can get the Max Caster raps on his own. I don't need the other guys to say "Scissor Me Daddy," and I don't need them to say the wrong city every single week. Like, that stuff wasn't funny whatsoever. I mean, like, Scissor Me Daddy might have been funny once, but once you say like a joke like that 10, 15 times, I don't understand how people can continue to laugh at the same thing over and over. But anyway, Matchcaster's raps, on the other hand, you never know what you're going to get. They're going to be timely. They're going to be about the guys in the ring, unless they're complete jobbers. Well, then he'll still find something about the guy, like, oh, you look like buckwheat or something, So always really, really good. I hope to see more of the Acclaimed. I hope they don't just get buried away on nothing. So, I mean, even if I don't care if they're on Dark and Dark Elevation. I watch those shows every week too. So, to me, I'm the kind of guy, I don't care if you're on Dynamite. I don't care if you're on Rampage. I just want you to be around. I want you to have stories. Like, if you're only on Dark and Dark Elevation with no stories ever, well, then now we got a problem. So in a video, this was one of the only things I didn't write down word for word. I was really having trouble with. I didn't think I was I was gonna be like until 11 Eastern until I can get on. But this video with Miro, and he's talking about Malachi Black. I swear I rewound it about 3 times, but it's kind of hard to figure out like word for word what Miro's saying. Not because of his accent or anything. It's just like, maybe it's because he didn't really say a lot, or maybe it was because it was coded. But basically, Miro wants to fight Malachi Black. We've heard him talk about Malachi Black before, where it was a lot better. In the past, he was talking about how Malachi Black is a pagan and how, like, he's a godless man and stuff like that. And so that was a little better than this one. I wasn't quite sure what Miro was talking about, but I'm definitely down for a Miro Malachi Black match. That's for sure. So we go back to the ring. It's time for it's like we've got about 40 minutes left in the show, and that's almost the cue to always have the one women's match of the week, and you almost always can guarantee you go from that one women's match that starts 40 minutes with 40 minutes left to go in the show, and it almost always goes to a Jade Cargill promo in the back immediately after. So it's like everyone can realize that they have like this little women's section, like I don't know, and it always happens at the same time. It's kind of weird, and it kind of, I don't know. The women really need their own show. They really need their own show. So anyway, and like I said, I watch all the Dark and Dark Elevation. I get to see the women wrestle a lot more than the people that don't, but still, it's always weird. They're always rushed. They always go to a picture-in-picture ad break. It's always the same. And it's like they squeeze it in there trying to like just to squeeze it in there, where I wish they had their own like kind of thing where they can just kind of breathe and have their own little division. Anyway, Nyla Rose music hits. She comes out with Marina Shafir, and Shafir has an umbrella open. Right when Shafir throws the umbrella behind her, Nyla opens one, so they didn't have their timing well on that one. And they have umbrellas, you see, because they are fighting the team of Thunderstorm. So how cringe can you be? Maybe I was just in a bad mood while watching this, but everything's so damn corny and cringe. It's just anyway. Thunder. I mean, I don't mind the Thunderstorm nickname for Thunder Rosa and Tony Storm. That's fine. Those are their names, and it fits, and it's a nice little name. It's still way better than like Swerve in Our Glory. That's a terrible freaking name. But what does that even mean? You're just smashing. Like, why didn't you just call him Swerve Lee at that point or something? Keith Strickland. Like, those make as much sense as Swerve in Our Glory. But Thunderstorm's a good name, but the whole like, oh, we need to have umbrellas because it's gonna be a thunderstorm. That was so stupid. Thunder Rosa comes out with a black cowgirl hat, and they both have matching. Her and Tony Storm have matching like silver jackets. They're not completely matching, but they're both silver. And I like when tag teams do that, where they're especially if they're not like an established tag team, but they'll try and match colors or stuff. We saw that on Raw when Carmella came out, and I knew instantly because Natalia was already out there. Carmella, we haven't seen wear like pink and black in a long time, but here she is wearing pink and black. So, this is about to break down into a tag match where she teams with Natty. So little things like that I always love. And this ends up being, I know I kind of gave it crap at the beginning for those umbrellas. This ends up being probably potentially my match of the night. It was really good. So let's get into it. Thunder Rosa, like I said, had a black cowgirl hat. She was looking great coming out. Tony and Miranda. Who's Miranda? Tony and Marina are gonna start this match. Tag over to Thunder Rosa, who looks great. The crowd is dead at the start of this one, but Thunder does get them to get alive by the end of it. Nyla's getting knocked off the apron now. Then Thunderstorm double team the Marina. We get quick tags leading to more double teams from Thunderstorm. Marina is now isolated into the wrong corner. Thunder hits a really nice kick, but only gets a 1 count off of that. Marina Shafir has plenty more in the tank. Great counter wrestling now, my absolute favorite style in the world. That's where this match started to pick up for me. I really liked what I saw after that point in time. Thunder now hits a chop so hard that Marina makes a noise that I've never heard a human being make before, and then she hits her with even more chops. Marina is now super mad. Marina Shafir fires up. And that didn't quite work, but soon after, Nyla hit Storm in the back with the umbrella, and we go right to a picture-in-picture ad break. There's never been a women's match that didn't go a picture-in-picture ad break. Anyway, they then work over Storm with quick tags, all ad break, nothing much to report. When we come back, Nyla is beating up Storm, but Storm gets the tag anyway. Kind of weird. Then Thunder kicks Marina off the apron, hits some big chops on Nyla. Thunder has been amazing in this match, and now the crowd wakes up with a Thunder Rosa chant. A running drop kick just as good as Saray's by Thunder Rosa. Nyla now counters the tag in Marina. Marina hits a beautiful counter to hit a pump handle slam, or like throw. It was more of a slam, throw than a slam. That was great stuff. One of the best matches of the night right here. Toni Storm then hits a suplex and slaps her hip to call for the Umaga hip attack, and she hits a nasty hip attack. Not as good as some of the other ones we've seen lately, but those ones look like she legitimate. Like the one she hit on Thunder Rosa, I thought she was a goner. I thought we were gonna have to call the paramedics. But nasty hip attack. We get a double team Thunder driver with an added assist from the top rope to spike it from Toni Storm. What a match. That gets the win. What a team. I know a lot of people are like, oh, there's too many championships, but I'm only going to look at it as the women's division. There's 3 women's titles. All 3 of them are singles. I think you can add one more. And one of those, the ROH title, is probably going to go leave to its own show eventually. So you've got your 2 singles titles and a tag title. I think that would be great. I think the women's division is ready for a tag title. And why not, right? We need more women's matches. If they're not going to frickin' write stories for the women, at least they can maybe get on TV if there's another title for them to go for. So what a match, what a team. I love that. In the back, Tony Schiavone, of course. Of course, who's Tony Schiavone with? Just like every single time we have the one Dynamite women's match, we go to the Jade Cargill, Kira Hogan, and Stokely Hathaway. Jade Cargill is mad at Stokely about last week. If you remember, Jade easily beat Layla Gray. Then after the match, Athena and Chris Statlander came out, and Layla Gray eventually saved Jade, but Jade didn't want any part. So if you remember, Red Velvet got injured, so now there's a search for a new baddie, and Stokely basically says, well, we can have an interim champion. Why can't we have an interim baddie? I paid Layla Gray good money last week, and then Layla Gray shows up, but nobody wants to like shake her hand or anything. And Jade says, well, if this doesn't work out, this is on your ass, Stokely. So it looks like officially Layla Gray is an interim baddie. I know a lot of people are going to be excited. I heard a lot of people saying, oh, that's like the most beautiful woman I've ever seen in wrestling. Like, I don't know about that, but I do know that she can wrestle. She's been the OVW women's champion for a while now, and she's been on a lot of matches in AEW. I think she's been on I think she lost to Raquel Rodriguez on SmackDown within the last couple of months. So Layla Gray's been all over the place. So I'm hoping we can maybe find a new person to add to the roster. and maybe they already signed her. So we'll have to find out. So they tell us what's going to be on Rampage. It'll be, oh my God, Eddie Kingston versus Takeshita. That is going to be a sick match. And Takeshita, as much as I like Kingston, just have Kingston lose. Come on. Anyway, also Serena Deeb and Mercedes Martinez will be in a tag team match, probably against Jobbers again. And that probably might be the point where they finally explode. It's one of those teams, they don't get along. They just kill each other by they kill their opponents by trying to one up each other. So I'm pretty dang sure that Mercedes Martinez is going to be fighting, defending her ROH title at the ROH pay-per-view in a few weeks against Serena Deeb. So that might be the kickstart to that storyline, whatever happens in that match. We'll also see the Tony Nese versus Orange Cassidy match they announced. And if you remember from last week's Rampage, or maybe even 2 weeks ago, it was Lee Moriarty and Jonathan Grisham getting challenged by Tully Blanchard Enterprises tag team of Toa and Khan, the Gates of Agony, who are part of Tully Blanchard Enterprises. So looking forward to that match. I like the sound of a Lee Moriarty Jonathan Grisham tag team going forward. If we can get that as a tag team in the future as well, that'd be great. Then next week is going to be the Road Rager event version of Dynamite, and it will be Claudio versus Jake Hager and the 3-way title match for the tag team titles. So that should be a good one. And then also announced for the ROH pay-per-view, for the ROH Pure title, it'll be Wheeler Yuta versus Daniel Garcia. So right there, that's kind of what I was talking about, how some of the Jericho Appreciation Society / Blackpool Combat Club things and Kingston are still going on. We've got next week Claudio versus Jake Hager. We've got at the ROH pay-per-view Yuta versus Garcia. And we've also got Kingston saying he's not done with Jericho. So now Garcia's in the back tucking a million miles a minute. He definitely knows that he has to get this in quick, and he does a good job not messing up his words like I just did while saying messing up words. He talks really fast, but he says, I took it to Yuta, and I determined he doesn't scare me or anybody with that tough guy attitude. And he's talking so fast, bro. This whole show throws so much info at you that it's just so hard. So I think Garcia said a couple other things here, but he says basically that he's not scared and he's going to take Yuta's title. So now we go to an ad break. When we come back, FTR's in the back. And Cash says no match has ever taken more out of us than when we beat the Briscoes at the last ROH pay-per-view, Supercard of Honor. Probably a lot of people's match of the year, period, in any company, singles or tag. That match was amazing. If you haven't seen it, go see it before this one happens, because it looks like it might happen again, because then Dax challenges the Briscoes to a rematch at ROH's Death Before Dishonor. I don't know if that officially means that Tony Khan's willing to work with the Briscoes, or if this is just a ROH thing to sell some more buys for this ROH pay-per-view that's probably going to be really low bought. I can't imagine more than like 40,000 people would want to order the ROH pay-per-view, but they do have a couple weeks to try and set up and get more interest in it. But like I said, it looks like right now, let me try and think of the card. We've got Jay Lethal versus Samoa Joe for the ROH TV title. We've got potentially FTR versus Briscoe's rematch of the match of the year. Then I'm pretty sure we're getting Serena Deeb versus Mercedes Martinez for the ROH women's title. We don't quite know yet what Jonathan Grisham's going to do, but if he's feuding with Tully Blanchard Enterprises, I could see Grisham versus Brian Cage for the ROH title. And I'm sure we're going to get a lot of other really, really good matches as well. So that's all I can think of so far. I think there's one title I'm not remembering. So there's the TV title, the women's. No, I think that's everything, because Yuta's going to fight Daniel Garcia for the Pure title. And then, like I said, Lethal versus Samoa Joe for the TV title. That sounds really good. It sounds like a pay-per-view I'm going to enjoy. So it's time for the main event. And let me get one more drink before we get into it. So Really good. Two really good entrances here. Brody Lee. I mean, I'm sorry. This is the Brody Lee celebration, though, in Brody Lee's hometown, which is why I said I'm pretty sure that's why Brody King was selected to be in the main event to begin with. So we started with the TNT title that they did in honor of Brody Lee. Then we had Brody Lee Jr. -1 out in the middle of the show, and then we end the show with a guy named Brody in the main event for the title. So Brody King, of course, I don't really need to explain. If you've seen their entrances, you know how amazing they are. I don't really need to explain it, but they were both amazing. So the match starts, and Brody takes it to Moxley right away, and the brawl spills to the outside. Moxley dodges an attack and sends Brody into the steps. Mox then hits his tailbone on the entrance ramp right when it starts, and I don't think that was supposed to happen, but the announcers really put it over. And if you remember, if you watched the show, Regal was talking about like, oh, I'm sure like everyone as a child bruised their coccyx, as he calls it. That's just the tailbone. But yeah, I have, and to this day, I probably heard it 20 years ago. To this day, if I sit too far back where like I'm not on my cheeks and I'm more on like my back, and maybe I'm not sitting on something solid or flat or whatever, my tailbone kills me. And that was 20 years ago. So I'm sure almost every wrestler has a partially broken or bruised tailbone that they have to deal with, because there's no way you can avoid wrestling and not hurting your tailbone really badly, which sucks. Why do we have that damn tailbone? um, I'd rather have a tail. You know? Think of the balance we'd all have if we had tails. Anyway, I didn't think I'd be talking about humans having tails in this review, but here we are. We get so remember that we were out on the outside. The match is kind of just starting. We go back in the ring now. Mox hits a drop kick to the knee, and then immediately hits a dragon screw leg whip on that same knee, right into a figure four leg lock. And JR is really putting over, oh yeah, that's definitely how you get down the big man, chop him down the size. So Brody King is stuck in the figure four, but just strikes his way out without too much problem. Moxley now works on the legs a little bit more. Hits a leg guillotine, as JR called it. I didn't know that was the move for it. I thought it was like I'm gonna call it a Native American deathlock, which I've never heard it called that either. You know what the real name was. Anyway, Brody King then hits a boss man slam for a 2 count, and that's our cue to go to the picture-in-picture ad break, our final one of the night. And at one point during, I think it was the last match, Excalibur told us that, oh, Tony Khan says that we'll stick with the main event as long as we have to, which, I mean, like I started my review, like this whole show was trying to cram so much information and stuff at you, like what they definitely went over by a couple minutes, and I'm glad that Tony Khan has this relationship with TNT where he can go past the allotted time. And they needed it tonight. If this match had to end 4 minutes earlier than it did, it would have been pretty bad, because it was already rushed to begin with. And we don't want rushed main event title matches, bro. You can only have if you have like 2 or 3 main event title matches in a row that are super rushed and feel insignificant, people are no longer going to take your TV title matches, not for the TV title, but like on TV title matches serious anymore. They're going to be like, oh yeah, that's just a stupid TV title match. I'm not even going to bother, kind of deal. So you got to be really careful with those. Like, it sounds good on paper for you. Oh yeah, we got a title match tonight, a big main event title match. But if you don't deliver, and if it's too rushed, and it just seems like a complete waste of time or whatever, you're gonna burn the audience. Just go act like the WCW audience. um. So anyway, when we go to that picture-in-picture ad break, Brody King's now dominating Moxley, who tries to fight back, but one chop later takes Moxley right back down. Moxley hits a superplex and goes for some boots to the face, with the trapped arms stomping on the face. Moxley then tries to lift Brody up, but he can't, so he goes back to strikes. This wakes up Brody King, who hits a massive lariat and then a pile driver. Moxley's able to kick out. And really good match so far. Hard hitting both ways. At some point we came back from the ad break. I forgot to tell you. And really, really good, hard hitting match. Brody gets a sleeper on and climbs up to the ropes and like has Moxley draped over, kind of like how almost the exact same way Brody King beat Darby Allin in the Battle Royal. So some of that like, and for some reason JR was like, "Oh, I'm there at disqualification right now. Why isn't the match over?" Like, what do you mean, JR? Like, even if that wasn't a legal hold, wouldn't he have a 5 count? So unless he held it past the 5 count, maybe I missed that part, and that's what JR was talking about. Or maybe there's some unwritten or like there's some rule I don't know about submissions and whatnot when you do stuff like that. I don't know, but it made JR look silly in my opinion. And I'm usually a JR defender, and I'll give him a lot of leeway based on his age and all the cash he has from his long his cash in the bank for his long career, but not really good look there. So right after that massive lariat and the pile driver that Mox kicked out of, Brody then was doing that sleeper, and he has him almost asleep. They said, like he obviously he had to let go because it was getting like the 5 count or whatever. Brody then hits a cannonball senton in the corner that he tried earlier and missed, but he's able to hit it this time. Moxley escapes a Thunder Fire driver and tries a roll up for it, but Brody kicks out at 2 and then eats a paradigm shift immediately after that. So Moxie's a little bit too hurt, a little bit too whatever you want to call it. I guess hurt's fine to cover Brody in time. So eventually he starts hitting the hammer and elbow, the hammer rapid elbows onto Brody since he knew that he took too long to make the pin. I love that move. That showed some really good smart. That's the championship move right there. Not going for the pin when you knew it was already too long. So let me just hit you with elbows in your face instead. Then Moxley locks a sleeper on Brody, but Brody jumps onto his back, like falls to his back like that to break the hold. But immediately Moxley just puts the hold back on. Then Moxley beautifully transitions the sleeper hold into the bulldog choke, and it's in deep. Moxley, as Regal says, his belly button's pointing to the sky, which must be like an MMA type grappling type thing. If you can point your belly button to the sky, you know it's going to be over. Well, I like that line, even though I didn't understand it. But a good ending here. Brody King's eyes roll into the back of his head. The referee calls for the bell, and your winner by referee stoppage and still AEW interim champion, world champion, I should say, is Jon Moxley representing the Blackpool Combat Club. So good match here. Of course, could have used 5 more minutes, but like I said, we're almost 5 minutes past the scheduled time. So literally we kind of just, oh, and Moxley wins and goodbye. Because we were already like 5 minutes over, and all of a sudden, what was it? American Dad starts on TBS. So like literally 10 seconds after the bell rings. So I wish it was 5 minutes longer, but I'm glad we got that extra 5 minutes as we did, because then it would have been 10. Then I would have thought it should have been 10 minutes longer. So that being said, good match overall. I don't know where Brody go. I mean, well, yeah, I guess I don't know where Brody goes either, but I was going to say, I don't know where Moxley goes immediately after this. I'm sure we won't have to wait too long. Maybe potentially they might even want to have, there's a chance we could have Jon Moxley on the ROH pay-per-view. Maybe if Tony Khan thinks that he's not going to have enough buzz or people buying the pay-per-view, we might get a Moxley match on there for the title. As far as who could Moxley fight next, I mean, the person I wanted to win the Battle Royal was Takeshita. I really wanted to see Takeshita and Moxley fight for the title, but doesn't look like we're gonna get that. But maybe that'll be the next interim fight. As far as I watch all the New Japan shows, and El Desperado, if you remember, if you're not a New Japan fan, he's the one that came and helped Jericho when it was first announced that Jericho was going to team with Suzuki. He was the guy with the mask, the white and black mask. And El Desperado was saying that even though he hates flying, he wants to come back to America and he wants to take on Jon Moxley. So we'll see if maybe that's a couple other people got called out. Shingo called out Sting, even though they were teammates, and he said, yeah, it was great teaming with Mr. Sting, as he called him. Just kind of like Andrade does. But yeah, Shingo said, but I didn't like that Sting got the pin, and now I want to come back to America and take on Sting. So maybe that'll be a match we see. Of course, at some point, FTR are going to have to go to Japan to either defend or drop the IWGP tag titles. And I think that's it. A couple other people, but Clark Connors, who was a big head at Forbidden Door, got an invitation right back to Japan. He took the DKC with him. Now, if you remember, the DKC was on Dynamite just before Forbidden Door, and I think Hook beat him in like a minute or maybe even like 2 minutes. But so we didn't get to see much of the DKC there. But from what I've seen of the last 3 nights in New Japan, the DKC is amazing. The Japanese announcers absolutely love him. So the DK, we didn't even get to see what DKC's gimmick is on Rampage, but what it apparently is he's a self-taught karate guy. So he does a lot of karate chops with hi-ya, hi-ya, hi-ya. And then the announcers are all like half mocking but half absolutely loving DKC, but it still kind of sounded like they were laughing at him. But they're like hi-ya, hi-ya, hi-ya. They're like mocking all the hi-yas, and then DKC's like DKC fire. And then the announcers was like, oh, DKC fire, DKC fire. And still, I swear they were laughing at him and not with him, but I didn't care. I'm just sitting here in America watching New Japan and thinking it was freaking hilarious. So if you're wondering who the heck the DKC is, apparently he's a gimmicky karate guy. But yeah, Clark Connors did get invited back to Japan. I don't know if that was their plan originally, but maybe since he impressed at Forbidden Door, he got called back. But should be pretty good Impact next week. It's the Road Rager event, and the matches that we've got announced so far are that 3-way tag title match that'll probably be the main event. Young Bucks, Swerve in Our Glory, and Team Taz. And we've also got Claudio Castagnoli versus Jake Hager in Claudio's first singles match on the Dynamite. So that's going to be a great one. I don't think anything else has been announced for Dynamite. We've got our Rampage card, like I said. Really looking forward to that Kingston Takeshita match. We've also got Deeb and Martinez teaming up. That'll probably be the time when they finally explode, and that'll set up the Serena Deeb Mercedes Martinez ROH women's title match for the ROH pay-per-view. Then on Rampage, it'll also be Tony Nese versus Orange Cassidy, and then Lee Moriarty and Jonathan Grisham versus the Gates of Agony, Toa and Khan. So good things to look forward to. We've got an ROH pay-per-view to look forward to, even if you're not that excited about it. Looks like there's going to be some good matches, maybe worth at least finding a stream, if you know what I mean. So if you're not willing to put down, if you're kind of strapped on money after, because AEW went from doing a pay-per-view every 3 months to now they're going to have 3 in a row, and then I think it's not that much longer, and then it's going to be all out. So almost 4 months, maybe 4 out of 5 months in a row for AEW having a pay-per-view. If you want to count the ROH, which I do, it's all going to be done on AEW television. So it's not like it's going to be like stuff I can ignore if I want to watch AEW. But yeah, if you're interested in what happens on Dark and Dark Elevation, definitely go check out my reviews. I try to be really in depth, but also kind of quick at the same time, if that makes any sense. So I'm not going to waste your time. I'm just going to give you good facts and stuff and tell you how the matches went. And I'll also, on the Dark review, I also review BTE. Wait, no, on the Elevation review, I review BTE, and then on the Dark review, I also review Hey EW with RJ City. So if you're interested in what happens on those, definitely go check those out. I'll also be back on Friday right after Rampage, or I think on Friday I won't be on until about an hour and a half after Rampage goes off the air, maybe even 2 hours. So look for me on late nights Friday. I'll be doing maybe after everybody else does their Rampage reviews. If you're still looking to talk about or listen to someone talk about it, come join me on my reviews. So, and like I said, I cover New Japan as well as the Enemy, WWE, and NXT, and MLW, NWA, and Impact, as you could probably guess by the amount of times I called Dynamite Impact tonight. But yeah, that was a lot to take in tonight. I think I'm gonna get going. I could probably draw this out for another half hour, but I think we kind of talked about everything we need to. It looks like a really, really good stuff. It looks like the old AEW is back as far as with all the stories and the super fast-paced stuff. Really looking forward to Kingston. I just just before I go here, I was thinking, it popped in my brain that like my favorite heel right now is Christian and my favorite babyface is Kingston. So I don't know how we could get that, but can you imagine the promo battle between Kingston and Christian? Whew. Somebody please throw that into the ether so that that becomes a thing. Somebody tweet Tony Khan. And on that note, I'm going to get going. Thanks for tuning in. Please send me a subscribe and a like, trying to get my name out there. My worst, for whatever reason, the AEW reviews for me are get less numbers than like my MLW and my Impact reviews. I'm pretty sure that's because there's a lot more people covering AEW, but still, my like my WWE reviews get pretty big numbers. So, um, definitely tell your friends. Especially if you don't care about my Dynamite and Rampage reviews, but you are someone that cares about Dark and Dark Elevation. There can't be many more people that put as much research in the Dark and Dark Elevation as I do. I try and give you the exact like whole story about who these talents that come in. You might want to call them. You might call them jobbers. I wouldn't though, especially after like most of them are champions from whatever federation they're coming from. So I'll let you know all that info and stuff like that. So. Thanks again for tuning in. I'll talk to you guys again soon. Have a great one. Peace.